In today's video, I will go through the best budget options for your FPL teams and the best enablers, as I like to call it, because that will be so important this year, specifically because there is so many expensive players like Erling Haaland, Bukayo Saka, Cole Palmer, Mohamed Salah. You want those players in your team, but it will be very, very hard this season, and therefore you want these players in your first FPL team. And also remember to join my FPL private league. 500 euros in prizes will be given away in my private league this season. But the first player on this list will be Dan Burn, a 4.5 million defender, which I think is just a bargain in general. I think Newcastle will be a lot better defensively this year, and especially because of the return of Nick Pope, which I think Newcastle fans will be so excited about. And yeah, when we look at Dan Burn's 2023-24 stats, we can see that he averaged 3.2 points. And something I think is really impressive by Dan Burn is that he isn't a typical left back, but he gets into so many dangerous positions, and those goals stats, 0.07, isn't that bad for a defender, and his expected is 0.10, which is also pretty decent. Assist 0.07 and expected 0.04. And now we also need to keep in mind he's a 4.5 million defender. And when you have those type of stats, that gives me a lot of confidence, and especially with the fixtures: Southampton at home, Bournemouth away, and also Wolves away in game week 4. Those three fixtures are very good, and I could actually see him get a clean sheet in at least 2 of those. And of course, Spurs at home, I would personally just rotate him in that fixture. And also clean sheets last season, 10 clean sheets, which is very impressive, especially keeping in mind how bad they were defensively at the end of last season. And also XG conceded of 1.6, which is pretty much what I was expecting, especially after watching a lot of Newcastle matches last year. And they were very good offensively last year, but defensively, I'm so surprised that they came away with 10 clean sheets. But one thing with Dan Burn, he never gives up. He gets a lot of minutes, and he's also so dangerous in the box. So therefore, he will be the first one on this list. And the second one will be a maestro, Daichi Kamada, 5.5 million midfielder. I know it says defender here, but that is a mistake. I mean midfielder, and I think this is a bargain. We can't actually use the points for last season because he's a recent transfer. He moved away from Lazio to Crystal Palace, and therefore we don't have any FPL points stats. But of course we have the stats from Serie A last season. And one thing I want to keep in mind before we go any further with Daichi Kamada is last year he didn't have the best of a year. But before that he was so good at Eintracht Frankfurt. I think he had 2 or 3 seasons where he performed really well. So we need to take these stats with a pinch of salt, in my opinion, because I think he will be so good under Glasner. But we could still go through them. He had a 0.12 in goals and also expected of 0.11 per 90. Assists 0.12 and also expected of 0.12, which isn't the best in my opinion. I think you want a little bit more, but keep in mind he's a 5.5 million midfielder, which is also something to keep in mind, that these stats doesn't need to be the best. And also he is a typical form player. We saw at the end of last season with Lazio, he was really good getting those assists and goals, but you want to see that more often. And I think he's a player that will just hit the ground running, especially with these type of fixtures in the first 4. Brentford away, West Ham at home, Chelsea away and Leicester at home is 4 relatively good fixtures. And I think especially Crystal Palace will be so good this year. We saw how good and dominant they were at the end of last season, beating Aston Villa 5-1, which was just extremely impressive. So this will be a midfielder definitely to look out for the upcoming season. And moving on to another budget midfielder, it will be Longstaff, coming in at only 5 million. And I love these price tags because under 5 million in midfield, and if he starts, if he can get you those good numbers, it could be such a good enabler to get a player like Salah in your team, a player like Bruno Fernandes, Saka, and also Haaland in your team, and then you just put a player like Longstaff besides that, and in some of the occasions he will also get you those assists and also goal points, and that was actually what he did for the entirety of last season. He came up here and there, a bit like Scott McTominay, scoring those goals, getting those assists, and if you could catch the wave right when he get those assists and goals, because he's a box-to-box midfielder. I thought he was pretty bad last season, but that doesn't matter too much if he can get you those points, because FPL is about getting those points, so you don't need to be the best all-around player, as long as you can get you those goals and also get you those assists, and that is what I love with Sean Longstaff. And per 90, 3.6 points, which I think is very impressive for a 5 million midfielder, and also in terms of goals, 0.2, expected of 0.22, that is extremely good in my opinion, and I would much rather have him instead of a 4 million defender that gets, like, in some locations 6-pointers. I would much rather have a player like Sean Longstaff and play a 3-5-2 formation instead of playing a 4-4-2 formation, for example, because I think it's so good to have a player like this that can hit those peak scores on occasions. If you get a goal or an assist a game, he could push up to 8, 9 or even 10 points, which is something you want to see for your midfielder. And also when it comes to assists, 0.07 and also expected of 0.10, which I also think is very good. And I always see him in those dangerous positions when he plays. So also these stats can lie in some of the occasions, because there are many scenarios where he's so close to getting the ball, and if that ball goes through the opposition defense, he will most likely just tap it in. So that is also something to keep in mind. In terms of the clean sheets, he's a midfielder, so it doesn't matter too much. 10 in clean sheets last season, and also, as I said with Danburn, XG conceded of 1.6, which isn't the best, but for a midfielder it doesn't matter too much, although it's always nice to get those 1-pointers in. And also when it comes to his fixtures, Game Week 1 Southampton at home, Game Week 2 Bournemouth away, Game Week 3 Spurs at home, Game Week 4 Wolves away, I could see him getting some goal contributions in every single one of those fixtures. But the one thing to keep in mind is that will he be as nailed as he were last season? We know that Eddie Howe loves Longstaff, he plays him no matter what, but it also depends if they have a Miley back, if they have Tonali back, and etc. But we will of course see the predictions closer to the season, and also how Eddie Howe lines the team up in the preseason. But throughout the season he seemed very nailed in my opinion, so this one is definitely one to monitor. And the next one gives me a lot of excitement. That is Cunha, the Wolves forward, coming in at only 6.5 million, and in my opinion one of the best budget forwards, especially if you are playing a 3-4-3 formation, or a 4-3-3 formation, or a 5-2-3 formation, because when you have 3 forwards you can have Cunha, and then you can have for example Haaland, or maybe Ollie Watkins, and then another one which could be Mateta or Alexander Isak. And I think Cunha is the perfect forward enabler. Although he has some tough fixtures, I want to just take a fast look at that. Arsenal away, Chelsea at home, Nottingham Forest away, which should be a good fixture, and also Newcastle at home. And one thing to keep in mind is that I don't think these fixtures is too bad for a player like Cunha, because he always turns up to the big occasions, and he could get the goal against Arsenal away, Chelsea at home, and if there is a guy that scores those goals, it's most likely going to be Cunha from Wolves. And also when you look at the stats per 90, he has on average 5 points and goals of 0.44. That is out of this world in my opinion from last season. An expected of 0.35. And also assists of 0.26 and expected of 0.11, which I think is very good for a 6.5 million forward. Although the fixtures at the start is pretty hard, I think the fixtures just get better and better along the way. So this could also be a guy that you rotate in and out from the bench. And let's say you have some injury crisis, he's the perfect guy to just put in there, and he could get you those attacking returns, especially in the first 4 fixtures. And I wouldn't be surprised if he got more than 3 goal contributions in those 4 matches. And also when it comes to his clean sheets and XG conceded, it doesn't matter too much. But one thing with Wolves is that last season they were pretty good offensively, but very bad defensively. I think Jose Sa had so much to do each match, so I feel a little bit bad for him. So that is something to definitely monitor, that attacking players from Wolves can be really interesting, although I wouldn't bank on them, especially in the first 4 game weeks. But I think Cunha is a player to definitely look out for. And the last player will be none other than Joachim Andersen, and I think he's a bargain this year, coming in at only 4.5 million, and especially now with Glasner in charge, I think Crystal Palace will look really, really good, and especially with those opening fixtures, Brentford away, West Ham at home, Chelsea away, and also Leicester at home. Some really, really good fixtures where I could see Crystal Palace at least getting 2 clean sheets. And as I said, 4.5 million defender, very good enabler for the rest of your team. So you could have those really, really good forwards and midfielders. And points per night is 3.1, which I think is pretty decent. And in terms of his offensive numbers, I don't think we need to take too much notice into this. But keep in mind, it's not that bad. 0.05 in expected goals, 0.04 in expected goals, and assists 0.08 and expected 0.06, which isn't that bad at all in my opinion. And he's also a guy, if let's say Crystal Palace plays 0-0 or 1-0, I think Andersen will get a lot of those bonus points from 3 to 2 to 1, which is something you love from defender because he takes so many final third passes, and especially at the start of last season he was just a beast, and hopefully under Glasner he can keep that up for this season as well. And yeah, this will be the last one on this list. What do you think about these budget options? These are my 5 favorites. Should I make another video like this with new 5 players? And also, before I end this video up, remember to join the private league. I will have all information linked in the description. But for now, my name is Prizepool, and I will of course catch you next one. Bye bye and take care. Peace.